Holy smoke! I wasn't meant to be here. I was meant to be at Crystal Palace, admiring all the beauty of crystals and palaces in one location, allegedly. I'm not sure that's true. But since I'm here, I might as well do Who is Speaker's Corner. I know you love this, and I'm very, very, very honoured to have a guest with me who's been here for many years. He's a man that has got onto platforms, spoken proudly about what he believes in, which is what Speaker's Corner fundamentally is about. We, me, him, and others do have disagreements, but right now, this is just about this gentleman here who will introduce himself in a moment to you and explain himself. So, I'm greatly honoured again, very proud to introduce you to.
Oh, it's Vince. Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Sorry, I thought you would continue the presentation. This is
pause.
that was the pause. Was the pause? Sorry for that. So I am known in Speaker's Corner as Pavlov. You guys know me probably. I got my own channel, Pavlov in Response. I've been showing up in videos around here. And also I come here very often and I debate with people. I speak with people. I do my own speeches. These days, I mostly speak about politics, especially about Ukraine, because I'm Ukrainian.
We'll get onto what your subject of discussion here is this park in a moment. But first, this segment is about who you are.
Who I am.
So obviously, don't give as much detail as you feel is appropriate.
Absolutely.
And but the questions will sound a bit personal. But again, just give what you think is relevant. So tell us about your early life. What are your experiences around you as a young little kid running around the streets? So, because it wasn't in this country, you may be surprised to hear that with his strong accent. So, if you can just give the audience, so if you can just give the audience a snapshot of experiences as a young lad.
So I'll basically say what I usually say here, which is overall the backstory. I was born in Ukraine. I lived there for a bunch of years until I was 9. Then I went to Portugal. I lived in Portugal. I studied in Portugal. I went to uni there, and then after uni, I came here to the UK. Now I live here. I work here. I go to Speaker's Corner here because there's no Speaker's Corner in Ukraine and in Portugal, unfortunately, but maybe one day in the future. And I've always been very interested in speeches, in debates, in acting overall, in performing, in entertainment, all of these different things. They're all very interesting things to me. And also social experiments. I really love social experiments. And that's why I really like the alias, because my actual name is Pavlov. But when I said this name first time, this is actually the origin of my alias. When I said my name here in the park for the first time, people didn't hear it properly. They heard Pavlov. So they started calling me Pavlov from that point on. And I was like, oh, it's pretty interesting. It's like, Pavlov's dogs, like Ivan Pavlov, who did the experiment on dogs, the classical conditioning experiment. You guys probably heard of it. If you haven't, definitely check it out. It's very interesting. Basically measures the saliva of dogs, and it conditions them to react with saliva to ringing the bell, which has nothing to do with the food. But if you rings the bell every time before giving them the food, eventually they start salivating into the bell. So, that's how it is.
So, what was it like being? How long were you in the Ukraine for then? How long that part of your life?
So I was in Ukraine. I was living fully in Ukraine until I was 9. Then my parents brought me to Portugal. But I went to Ukraine a bunch of times after that for 1, 2, sometimes 3 months. But I never lived there after that. After my parents brought me to Portugal when I was 9 years old. In Ukraine, I lived in a village. I sometimes get into some debates about animal lives, animal rights. Thank you. Animal rights with animal rights defenders like vegans, all those people. Because I think in the cities, people have a little bit of a misguided opinion about animals. They see animals as, this pretty little ball of flesh that we're supposed to pet all the time and all that.
We're going a little bit off subject. I still like to concentrate a little bit, but if you wish me to move on to
Oh
Uh,
no, no. So
so
hold on. The subject is how I lived in Ukraine, right?
in that
What I did in
village,
Ukraine in the
what
village.
was that experience like? How did that help form the person you are today? And
Yeah, it was
what was the
pretty nice. Yeah.
political situation around?
Oh, the political situation. That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I forgot to mention that. I remember the political situation. The main political situation I remember when I was in Ukraine, in my village, was the Orange Revolution. I was in my village when Yushchenko became president, and there was this very optimistic view. Oh, Yushchenko, he's gonna bring Ukraine to Europe. He's gonna help Ukraine be closer to Europe. Now we're going to become a better country. We're going to be a country that people actually want to live in, and not a country where that people flee from, like they're fleeing from Russia now. But it was a lot of optimism. But then Yushchenko was poisoned, and he started betraying his word. Started going back on his word. He started letting go of promises to join the West, to join Europe, and people kind of lost hope at that point. So
You
yeah,
were 9 at the time, and possibly a bit younger.
around that. I can't remember the exact age when Yushchenko became president, but it was during the time that I was living in Ukraine. Now, a bit after, I think I was like 8 when he became president,
So
something like that. And when I was 9, people already were starting to get disillusioned with him.
what was the quality of life like? There's a political upheaval going on, but what was the quality of life like for your family and your village?
It was all right, you know, for a village in Ukraine, it was pretty good. Now, in Ukraine, for example, in my village, there weren't some of the comforts that are in a city. Obviously, you know, it wasn't as developed as a city. It wasn't like a city. It was a village, right? But you know, I lived with my grandparents. They were pretty hardworking people. Excuse me. They were, you know, pretty responsible people. So life was pretty easy for me. It was pretty good. Life was pretty alright there. Yeah, I can't complain much. But of course, you know, village in Ukraine. Ukraine is not a particularly rich country. In those days, it was, you know, worse. Actually, you know, Ukraine became better off um, in the last few years, right before this latest escalation, because a lot of Ukrainians have been going back to Ukraine with Zelensky's rule. Especially, it became better because he fixed the roads in Ukraine. Now, obviously, I wasn't living in Ukraine in those days, but I came to Ukraine for a few months and I saw the changes that happened in Ukraine with Zelensky, and he actually did do some things which the other presidents of Ukraine did not. They were making a lot of promises, they were not doing a lot. Zelensky actually did it.
So we've got a quite a nice, and I think thank you for that description of your early life. So you've travelled around Europe, and obviously, I would imagine you've always been quite political, or always quite observant of this. Or when would you say that started developing?
It's hard to say. I never I never was that into politics because I couldn't really identify myself fully with the right or with the left. You know, despite what some people might say, I'm a centrist. I'm a dead-on centrist. I'm not on the right. I'm not on the left. Now I will debate people very often, like I debate religious people here very often, and religious people are in the right of the political spectrum, obviously. And I also debate socialists very often, and socialists are on the left of the political spectrum. And I disagree strongly with both sides. So where actually am I? Well, again, I'm in the center. So I wasn't always very into politics, but these days I'm more than ever into politics because I think this situation in Ukraine requires all Ukrainians to speak as much as humanly possible about the current situation, because that's the main thing, that's the main help that the Ukrainians who live in the West and outside of Ukraine can do for Ukraine right now. Because again, Ukraine has had a lot of brave resistance against Russian incursions in the past. But unfortunately, this resistance has in the end failed very often. Why is that? Well, because Russia is a bigger country and Russia simply had more resources than smaller Ukraine. And the second reason is because nobody really cared. So Ukraine didn't really get a lot of support from the outside world. But now Ukraine is getting all the support they need, and that's why Ukraine. That's one of the reasons. One of the reasons is support. Another reason is again the overwhelming amount of bravery and you know, sturdiness that the Ukrainians are having right now in this conflict.
Which is a good thing. So we're going to get to who you are today, but I mean, I've known you for many years now. and I've always known you as very political, very observant, and very
Oh, thank you.
vocal in your uh, interrogation of the reality that's been presented before you, aka me sometimes, and others here as well, of course. And so the question is, how did Speaker's Corner filter into your consciousness? And what was the journey when you realised that that was quite important to you here at Speaker's Corner, and you deciding to come here?
So when I came to the UK, I immediately started asking the people around me about places where public speaking was happening, because I was aware that London was a place with some events happening about public speaking. We met in one of those in the philosophy event. Remember, I think we've met in one or two of those. That was one of the things that I was told about. But Speaker's Corner was a very important one. I was told about Speaker's Corner, and I came here and I really enjoyed the place. Even though this place, I think it's to a great extent poisoned by very unthought ideas. You know, sometimes people come here and preach flat Earth. I mean, ridiculous, right? It's absolutely stupid. But I think there's still space even for ideologies like that. And Speaker's Corner has been very important in my personal journey. I think.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, let's
in
expand on that.
yeah,
That's
I
very
think
important.
yeah, it's been very important. I really love Speaker's Corner. It's probably one of the most important places for me, where I found a lot of people that I learned from. Where a lot of people who eventually down the road became my friends, who I trust greatly, and also the place where I learned a lot about different ideologies, different worldviews, and all kinds of things. So this is a place where different echo chambers connect and collide, and that makes it very unique, because usually echo chambers keep it to themselves. For example, so there's a Catholic church over there, there's a mosque over there, there's a synagogue over there, there's whatever, a satanic lodge over there. I don't know, just making.
Welcome to London.
I know, just making things up at this
No,
point.
you're not that
But
wrong.
well, probably not. Probably there's probably are some satanic lodges around here. But my point is, you won't see them connecting or colliding. They keep it to themselves. Here in the corner, they do. They connect, they collide, and you get an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to see what happens up with that collision, to see who actually has better points, to see if anyone has actually good points, or if they're both completely wrong, which is also a possibility. There's a lot to learn in this place.
So you're saying that when people of different ideas come together in what's happening behind us is what we're literally describing, by the way. So you're saying this improves society and people and communities and ideas.
I'm not saying it necessarily improves it, but I'm saying there's a lot of potential to improve it here, if it's used correctly. If this place has a huge amount of potential, I've always said this. I will always say this. Ever since the Tyburn tree, this place has been symbolic. This place has been important. When people were being executed, not exactly in this place, but Tyburn tree, right? It's more around that area. Yeah. So it's technically a slightly different place. But Tyburn Tree later became Speaker's Corner when executions were forbidden, became forbidden. And people still came to it to do their speeches, to do the speeches that they would usually do before being executed. And they did these speeches without the execution part. And that's what brings this place a very grim beauty, I think. It's a place that shows change, that shows real change in society and in human beings, and how humans can learn with that change and learn with their own mistakes in the past. You know what I mean? But for that, we need to have a very pragmatic, very specific worldview, very specific way of engaging with this place. We can't be getting very emotional about our personal disagreements or about things like that. We need to look at this place in a very cold manner, as a scientist looks at an experiment. For example, again, Pavlov and the dogs. He was doing the experiment on to see what actually goes on, to bring yourself outside of the whole chaos and then inside again, because we need to intermingle. We need to connect with this chaos to an extent. You know what I mean? Uh, it's a difficult tightrope to walk on, but if we manage to do it, I think there's a huge amount of things we could learn in this place. I could go the whole day explaining different messages, different ideas that I've observed here in the park.
So I'm just going to, if you disagree with my statement, just step in, please. So I think what Pavlov is saying here is that the more that people come together and discuss their interpretations of reality, the more that kind of breaks down the mainstream's media, who I believe have polluted a lot of our brains, and other leaders who have also engaged in a lot of very disrespectful and insidious describing of reality, which unfortunately we accept because these are people we trust. And Speaker's Corner, consciously and subconsciously, can help break down those interpretations we have of people of different color, different races, different skins, different sexual orientations, etc., etc. Is that a fair statement, or have I
Yeah, you're
oversimplified?
partially right. No, no, look, you focused on a part of what I said, which is fair. I don't disagree with you, but what I said, it encompasses a lot more than just that. It encompasses also the basic understanding of why humans follow the ideas that they follow. For example, why does someone start believing in flat Earth, in something stupid as that? Well, they have a background of their own. They have proof that was shown to them, and they haven't been engaging with the opposing side. They haven't been explained properly why it's wrong. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So sometimes people go into ideas like that. And I think, look, the mainstream media oftentimes lies, but it sometimes also tells the truth. We need to have a critical sense to understand when to agree with it, when to disagree with it. Because as the saying goes, if you can't disagree with your enemy, you're being controlled by him. Being a contrarian for me is the same as being a so-called sheep who always follows the mainstream. It's absolutely the same thing because you're always look if you're always disagreeing with someone. For example, look, imagine someone like Hitler says you need to drink water often in a day or else you get dehydrated, and you say no, that's Hitler. I can never agree with Hitler. Well, he's kind of telling the truth in that moment. But obviously, politically, you can't agree with him. There's nothing you can agree with him politically. But even someone like that, even look, Putin says, oh, guys, you should practice regular exercise to keep in shape. I know I'm giving some ridiculous examples, but I'm giving them on purpose to show the extreme. Even a source or a person who has very bad points usually could say something decent sometimes. But at the same time, however, there's a Ukrainian saying that goes like this: "There is no tasty water in a swamp," and thus uh, that's the other side of the argument I'm making. On one side, someone who brings bad points could also bring a good point, but on the other side, if you keep taking information from bad sources, if you keep accepting that information, even if questioning it, eventually you're gonna get fooled by those informational
So
sources.
I think that's very profound, that point. And as I said at the beginning, before we went on camera, I'm not going to interrogate what Pavlov is saying because this is about Pavlov and this is about his journey to Speaker's Corner. Because we can will meaning we'll debate in the future, I have no doubt. So just to round up just a little bit more, Speaker's Corner, you come in here. You were saying that it's helped to improve your interactions with reality and being able to. Do you think debate is something that needs to be taught?
Absolutely, absolutely.
If you
People
had
don't know
advice,
how to debate. Oh,
if
sorry,
you
sorry.
had some advice for your viewers and my viewers about what when coming here and hearing somebody that you don't agree with, can you give them some advice on some basic debate or anything you like to give?
So I would say there's two ways of debating. The first one is debating with someone who you believe is arguing from an honest standpoint, and thus they will accept that they're wrong if you prove to them that they are wrong. This is something that very rarely happens. Honestly, this doesn't happen very often. But when I debate with someone, I always start with this standpoint, and then if I see that they're being disingenuous, I change to the second standpoint. We'll get to the second soon. The first standpoint in debating means that you give them honest information and all the information that you have, even if that information agrees with their point. Um, so you're being fully honest with them. You're being legit. You're being sincere with them. You know what I mean? Because they have sincerity towards you. But if someone doesn't have sincerity towards your argument, I don't think you're bound to be sincere with their argument. For example, if someone gives you a loaded question or a point that automatically gives you a fallacy. Hello, Pavlov, you alright? Hey, how are you? How are you doing? If someone gives you some kind of a loaded question or a point with no sincerity, you don't have to be fully sincere with them in that moment, because they're not playing fair with you. It's like, look, it's like being in a friendly sparring match with someone. That's how I see debating. It's friendly sparring. You're not trying to hurt the other person. You're just trying to show who has the better point. You're trying, as in sparring, you're sparring to see who's the better boxer, right? You're trying to see who has the better point. Um, if you see the other guy who keeps
Oh,
trying to punch you in the nuts, you're not bound to play fairly with him. You're not bound to always fight fair. Or if the other guy pulls out the knife and tries to shank you, you're not bound to play fair anymore. You can take away the knife from him and stab him with the knife.
so if
From
you're
my perspective,
so you're just like, are you saying that you feel that someone's not being genuine or sincere, therefore you're now embodied to do the same?
not the same, but I won't see them. I won't engage with them in the same way I would engage with someone who I see as being sincere. I'll give you a very very specific example of this. I don't mind that.
Uh,
Go.
it's just that my concern with that as a way forward of debate is that you may accidentally just misinterpret somebody's sincerity as insincere, or and another concern would be that you can end up with a psychopath only heading one direction. And I understand. In Speaker's Corner, there are people that just come here just to be ridiculous. It's true, but that happens anywhere on the internet. Because this forum here is
That's a good word.
localized to Speaker's Corner, but it happens in all our lives, in social media and workplace. It happens there. So, do you see my concerns of it? What you're
I
saying,
see what you mean.
cycles.
I'll give you a very specific example about this. So again, war in Ukraine, and I'll even give you an example about something you speak about often: Nazis. I get engaged oftentimes with the idea that, oh, Ukrainians are Nazis, Ukrainians are Nazis, blah blah blah. They got people zig heiling in Kiev, blah blah blah, all that stuff. It's pure baloney. It makes no sense. It's absolutely wrong. Now, are there no Nazis in the Ukrainian military? No, there are some Nazis, some individuals who identify themselves with neo-Nazi ideologies. Hold on. Let me just finish this point. So, if somebody comes to me and says Ukraine is a Nazi regime, Russia is fighting against the Nazi regime, they're trying to destroy the Nazis, it's a pure lie. It's an absolute lie. There are two neo-Nazi battalions on the Russian side. One of them is the Wagner Group, neo-Nazi mercenaries all around the world. The other one is the Sparta battalion, Russian Nazis who see the Russian ethnicity as the superior one in the world. You can look them up. And they're both bigger than the infamous Azov battalion. Now, the Azov battalion does have some Nazis, and what I mean by you don't have to play fair with them if they're not playing fair with you is I'm not bound to keep saying yes, there are Nazis in Ukraine, yes, there's Nazis in Ukraine, because it gives the wrong message to the crowd. It gives the message that there's more Nazis than there are. Having like 10, 20, 100 Nazis in a military of hundreds of thousands is different from having tens of thousands of Nazis in
Pavlov.
your military.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
this is the question originally was about you. If you interpret someone as insincere, or you think that if they are genuinely being sincere, then you will sort of engage in that in a similar or to a lesser or greater degree. Is that, do you think, can that not just lead to a cycle downwards in debate?
no, but listen, Dust. I'm establishing a difference between what they're doing and what you should do. You shouldn't respond with exactly the same thing. AKA, if someone pulls out a knife and tries to stab you, if you take the knife from them and stab them, it's not the same thing, because you were not the one who pulled out the knife. You were not the one who tried to sucker stab them. You know what I mean? It's automatically a different thing. Same thing applies to debates. If someone tries to indoctrinate on you or on the audience false information, you shouldn't spread false information. But at the same time, you can no longer keep playing fair with them as if they have a honest standpoint. At that point at that point, it's fine to take initiative in the conversation and bring the conversation where it actually matters. So you show their argument as the argument that's lying about the situation. You see what I mean? In other words, if somebody says to me that, oh, Ukraine is a neo-Nazi state, one option I would have if I kept playing sincere, it would say, "Oh yeah, yeah, there's some Nazis in Ukraine. We should change it. We should definitely change the situation." Yeah, which is legit. It's true. But the other thing, and what I actually do is, there's not enough Nazis in Ukraine to harbor any kind of a mass reaction to it. It's not a significant enough problem.
Yeah.
Do you see the difference? I'm not lying. I'm not misrepresenting the situation. I'm simply focusing on a specific part of the argument to show how their part of the argument is being
You've clarified that.
illegitimate.
You've definitely clarified that. I think we're getting an impression of when you come to Speaker's Corner, what debate and what topics will be discussed with Pavlov. Because I don't want to make, I want this to obviously describe who you are, but don't want to turn it into an hour long video. I'm trying to keep it down to 25, 30 minutes possible. So that's why. And also, I promised him, and I'd promised anyone who I disagree with, who comes on to Who is Speaker's Corner, that I won't engage in a debate on subjects he said as well. So that's why I'm not interacting with him as I would do normally, because that's my promise on Who is Speaker's Corner, just to let you speak. So, what is your vision of Speaker's Corner today and its potential future?
Speaker's Corner has very fortunately survived COVID, which is something I wasn't sure about. I wasn't sure if it would survive it, but it did. It's a very sturdy place, and once again, it means there's a lot of potential here. But at the same time, that sturdiness could work against it because it's a place that doesn't change that much nowadays. The same things that used to happen keep happening very often. We almost always have religious debates. Now, I'm not a person who says religious people shouldn't come here and shouldn't spread their ideas. No, quite the opposite. I hope more people come here, even if it's religious people, because it brings more attention to the corner. It brings more different people to the park. In other words, if there's one like religious nutcase who's shouting, saying, "Oh, we should go back to the Middle Ages. Those were the days. Those were the good times," you know, obviously I don't agree with them. I think they're spreading stupid misinformation. But I would prefer that to having no one here and people just walking by and not being interested in this place because there's no one here. Because these nutcases, they sometimes attract people who just want to check it out. And those people who are being attracted by these nutcases can sometimes be very interesting. And sometimes conversations with them are very illuminating, I would say.
Yeah, I just want to say I completely concur with that. I mean, there are people, who, as you were saying earlier, believe in flat Earth or believe in that. Like, I just think I just see if you can see him. But if you take a step back to that, yeah, that's it. There's a bloke on the platform there. He believes in we should bring back those stocks, come back into your leaf.
Those who?
So,
The leaf is gone. The wind
the leaf
blew,
is gone.
blew the leaf.
Look, wind. You're meant to be on my side. You're destroying this video.
The leaf is gone.
So you do have speakers like the one on the bloke on the platform who believes that stocks should be subscribed into our legal system for punishment, which obviously I disagree with. But so yeah, you're gonna have people who have ideas that are not your own. I don't like to use the word stupid as such, by the way, just to clarify that. It's just that I feel that everybody's welcome here, and everybody's welcome here to say what you think. And yes, obviously, we should disagree with that as passionately as and respectfully as humanly possible. But still, you are welcomed here. And yes, it does take a certain bravery. So you've been on a platform here, and you've seen others on platforms here. Any advice to people bringing platforms to there? Because it's a different level of person.
Yeah.
A different level of person.
Yeah, in terms of platforms, I would say if you are a beginner, you should bring a few friends here.
Nice.
If you start public speaking, it's going to be very daunting to start just by yourself and see people go by, not pay any attention to you. And it's not always because your speech is bad. It could be just because people, aren't very interested. Because look, imagine this. Imagine you're having a very interesting speech, about a very important topic, and 5 meters from you, there's this complete nutcase going, "Woo!" completely losing his mind. Who are people going to pay attention? They're going to pay attention to him, unfortunately. That's just how people work. People won't be able to tell by 5 seconds of listening to you that you have something interesting to say. But I will see from 1 second of seeing the guy going crazy that that's going to be something entertaining. That's something unique. That's something that doesn't happen every day. And by entertaining, I don't mean that we should point our fingers, ha ha ha, laugh at him. I mean that that's just how humans react usually. Something unusual, something that we don't see all time attracts more attention, for better or for worse. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a very beautiful
So bring
point.
some friends, get a topic, think of a topic before you come here. You don't need to write a speech, you don't need to do any of that. Just bring a topic, one, two, three, four, five bullet points. Just remember more or less what you want to talk about. Bring some friends, start talking to your friends, and people will come and listen. You know, if you are someone new who comes here to listen, if I'm around, I'll come and listen. And you know, because it's interesting, it's a new person. New people are rare here. It's going to be something pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you're getting the impression here that if you come to Speaker's Corner, come and find Pavlov and me, that we will absolutely support you and help you.
Absolutely.
And because it isn't easy, but what you are and what you are as a human being is unique. And being able to express that via the medium, just a simple debate like we're doing now, or getting on the platform, these skills take time, and confidence grows with time, and experience expands the realms in your mind, and this is what creates not only a better individual but creates a better society. And Speaker's Corner is here to do that, and being able to, and part of what Who is Speaker's Corner is about is coming here not to be overwhelmed by all the noise that Pavlov was just describing. So this Who is Speaker's Corner is so that you can come in and go, oh, there's Pavlov, or there's Dust, or there's someone I relate to, and would require some sort of, I would get, hopefully it was from all of us, of course, but you can go to Pavlov, to me, and others I've interviewed here, and get what you feel is going to be relative and important to you. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I agree with what you said, which is surprising. I don't always agree with you so much. Today we're agreeing quite a lot. Something is wrong. Something is terribly wrong today.
As I said,
Something is wrong.
As I said, I am being on very good behavior because I'm on my unique.
That's true.
I'm on my unique section of YouTube, which is
Being a very nice guy today.
Who
yeah.
is Speaker's
Being a very nice
Corner.
guy.
So
So you know about what you said again. I find it interesting that you mentioned the idea of noise, because noise can be pretty scary sometimes because we are afraid of getting lost in the noise. But I think I think it's important to give the people who will watch this an idea that silence can be even more terrifying than that. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If there's background noise, for example, Bob over there, Bob is shouting, doing his usual speech, or some other guy, some Habibis over there, some, conspiracy theorists, whatever, a bunch of different people around there are doing some noise, they're talking to each other. This environment, I would advise people to do speeches in this environment, because in this environment, there's a lesser expectation from you. If you go to a silent stage with 100 people in pure dead silence watching you and expecting something from you, the anxiety and the expectation is so much higher that it's gonna. You need to be a trained person. You need to be trained to be able to resist that kind of pressure on you. I know as an actor, as someone who has played in plays that were in front of a stage with hundreds of people, I know that that's a much more stressful environment than this. And this is a great place for people to start if they have if they have a desire, a will to learn new things, to experience new things, to learn public speaking, to learn about something about performance, whatever you mean, something that has to do with communication, anything that has to do with communication. This is a great place for that because of this noise, because this noise in the background, it comforts you. Even if you mess up, even if you misspell something, even if you, go like Trump went one time saying 7-11 instead of 9/11 on a big speech. Like Biden sometimes has these gaffes too, that they were having this. He was proud of being part of the biggest and most inclusive voter fraud organization or whatever. They all had their own gaffes, and it's a huge hit on them every time it happens. Here, there's a much lesser hit. So don't be worried about it. Bring some friends, bring a speech, come here and do it. It's going to be fine.
I apologise. I have to bring you to be more succinct with your answers due to the length of the video.
No worries, no worries. I'll
try
be
and
very
keep
short.
it. I'm not trying to repress you.
No, it's fine.
I'm
it's fine.
literally just trying to keep
You're actually right. Yeah, you're right.
I think we're getting a very strong. I think this video has definitely given we need to understand who Pavlov is. I like to say, is there anything else succinctly you'd like to add about you personally and
Yeah,
your understanding of reality?
yeah, I would just
Succinct.
like to end with the idea that truth is perception. If you guys come here with the idea that, oh, I got all the answers figured out, I'm going to show people the absolute truth, you're gonna come for a rude awakening. Although you won't be different from many people in the park, because a lot of people here in the park think they got everything figured out. I would say come here with the idea of learning something and
Yeah.
teaching something, but not with learning everything and teaching everything. That's how I would
That's
like.
very beautiful and profound, and a very good, nice way to wrap up this. I was going to say the last question would be: have you got something positive to say about?
Positive.
And you've
It's a very fun place.
it's very
That's my
fun.
positive
You've
part.
answered it already by that last profound message that you have just articulated so exquisitely. I just add one last thing, detail to his description, dude, which is that yeah, when you come here to debate or speak, don't expect to know everything, and and if the person who's in front of you expects you to know everything, that's their fault, not your fault. You can obviously come back and go off and learn more, and then come back the week afterwards. Don't feel that you've done something wrong because you've hit the limit of your knowledge on a subject. Never be ashamed of that. That's the point where you should be proud that you've reached a limit, because at that point you know how that's the line you need to step over and extend into a new realm of understanding and consciousness, I'd like to hope. So, Pavlov, even though we've had disagreements, I am very honoured that you said yes to Who is Speaker's Corner. I'm very proud of this moment. And can you say to people, please subscribe to the Age of Dust, please?
Subscribe to the Age of Dust, guys. I gotta write it down somewhere so I don't forget myself. I gotta check it out. This man is gonna subscribe to the Age of Dust. That's right.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
shameless plug here. Subscribe to Pavlovian Response
yes.
too. There you go.
Anyone else you want to subscribe?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So, thank you very much. This has been Who is Speaker's Corner, and about my fantastic guest, Pavlov. And remember, your dreams are real. So please dream, please dream for the best. I am the dust, and I am settled.
The dust.
Woo! Thank you.
Nice one. Nice one.
Cheers, mate. I really appreciate that.
No worries. It was a nice chat, man. Nice chat. We should keep doing this. This is pretty interesting.